So today I found out about a new wiki, and it's called Character Scaling Wiki. Apparently, um, sounds pretty familiar. But it can't be that bad, right? Like you see, normal stuff, building level, large building, city block. See, like it's all like it's normal, right? It's original, high universe. Oh, we're going to like seven dimensional, like whatever the fuck. Like it's not. Uh oh oh oh. It's 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 literally PSW. So by the other, like the third highest tier, zero tier, it talks about interdimensional infinity basically. So like a characters like these are in a state of being, existence, and non-existence, and non-being, change, and etc. Like that's literally what it says. So what this tier is like trying to affirm and shit is true infinity. Hegel's ideas. This shit is totally not copied from SPW or anything. Wait, bro, what the PSW, PSW. I'm fucking retarded. But anyways, as it says here, absolutist by Hegel is defined as being not dependent on conditional, whatever the fuck. Yeah. We already know what it basically is, not being dependent on conditional ontology or anything. Self-contained, perfect, incomplete. And by the way, just for clarification, again, as it says, it's going by, he defines true infinity as property of things, or like absolutus. I don't know why the fuck I'm stuttering so much. But anyways, like I was saying, right? Absolutum, which is basically the I think what it call I think it's just the main standstill world the fuck word of absolutus. So absolutum by definition is total, supreme, so in form of complete totality and supreme. So you are technically a supreme being, which would come incomplete with basically being God and shit, right? So what this tries to assume here is that this said fictional character, by this, since it's not going off of conditional ontology, it cannot have any, what do you call it, characteristical or functioning descriptions of um like a main life form, is what you would say, a main existential parts of life. So certainly potentiality, right? So what this like tries to affirm here is that it explicitly, like, to what it known, to like, or like what it's known. So basically, due to Hegel's ideas onto what is true infinity, it goes by the main idea of the mind of God, right? And the God mind, aka the infinite conscious matrix, or basically just the infinite consciousness, is at a state of totality, right? So the mind has actual knowledge of the mind's existence itself. The mind has knowledge of the mind, basically, right? So what this tries to affirm is that it's an actual essence, or incomplete actual existence, is what it says. As it says at the end, it only occurs, like, or an example is what you would say, it only occurs when a spirit takes itself as its own object. So it basically is an understanding of what it is. So again, actuality, basically, right? Now, the thing is on why this doesn't affirm or make sense to any fictional characters is because, first off, a character, by definition, has characteristics, and a character is an ideal notion, right? If we were to put into a perspective of true infinity and absoluteness of a character being supreme being and God and shit, what we would affirm here is that it's eternal, basically. It's eternal, it's God, etc. Like, it's not off of conditional ontology. And by the way, it says it's not dependent on conditional ontology. So if it's not dependent on conditional ontology, it's already contradictory, because when we affirm of making a character or making an idea of a character, putting it in the narrative we are creating in fiction, we put characteristics onto that character. We put characteristics, we put different types of properties, ontological properties of that said character, their essential existence, whether they're physical, metaphysical, spiritual, supernatural, whatever the fuck. Yeah, those are just main exact properties in this case, right? So if it's not dependent on conditional ontology, then we don't know what the character is, and we cannot make an ideal notion of something we do not even know of. Because in order to make an ideal notion, by the way, an ideal notion is just basically a general notion, aka a general understanding of a concept, so it takes into account of a conceptual point of view onto what is this said character, right? But the thing is, it's off of these charts. So again, it doesn't make sense. Also, by the way, I forgot to mention, or I already did mention this, but it says being, existence, non-existence, non-being, change, etc. So it's not potentiality. But the thing is that this actually tries to affirm with divine simplicity, right? Which affirms that God is essence or actuality, right? And has no compositions. But it doesn't make sense if a fictional character doesn't have compositions. Because if a fictional character doesn't have compositions and shit, and it's mainly essence, then that's a fictional character cannot exist. Because for a fictional character to exist, you need to make notions of what is that fictional character, but you cannot make notions of something divine and simple. So like, it doesn't make sense. It's like already being contradictory and shit. Yeah, like, we're just gonna go on to the next point. And by the way, no fictional character can be a supreme being, because supreme beings are eternal and ultimate and formless. By the way, formless basically being having none properties and shit. And basically, it's being entirely perfect. And by the way, if a supreme being was not perfect, then it's not supreme. By the way, supreme beings are basically God, right? God.
God.
Anyways, yeah. Next point, which is the next tier, ontological perfection. This is kind of the same thing, to be honest. Okay, I don't even want to get into these tiers, cause holy shit, this is ass, bro. Oh my god. Now, as you can see, to what these are, characters relative pure being, like we know, like ineffable state of God, absolute absolute apophatics. What the fuck? Yo, I can't with this shit, bro. I can't with this shit, bro. You can't be, bro. I don't know, like if they're trying to point out the context on whether like these tiers are above one another, cause like, bro, you cannot be above a supreme being, you fucking retard. Oh my god. And by the way, yeah, I just called Axlip a retard if he like even did make this tier, or if it was like somebody's idea. But like that ass, bro. I forgot. This is like a whole copy of PSW, bro. Yeah, I'm not even gonna get into these tiers. We already know how contradictory they are. Cause like, first off, yo, oh my god. We don't even have to get into. I don't even need to be like focused to get into this. I don't even have to bring up the law of identity to like get into like why this shit is so contradictory, bro. Like, bro, we don't need to, nigga. We don't need to. And look at, bro, they're putting, oh my god, they're putting like mythological, like theological, mythological religion, like, bro, the mythological ideas of religion. Yeah, okay, there we go. I'll put that in, but bro, this is dead ass just sad. Yeah, okay, I already debunked this point. I don't give a fuck if I was, stuttering and shit. I'm not gonna continue these points. We already know how like bullshit this shit is. So, hell nah, bro. Now here's mainly the problem with power scaling wikis in general. First off, I'm probably gonna just go by my belief in this case on why I don't necessarily use power scaling wikis, because most CV users, they basically just use win cons, arguments and shit, and not power scaling wikis. And the reason, like my reason for it is probably kind of the same thing as most people, because if you use a power scaling wiki, like it just feels like, to an extent, right? In VSVW, there's inaccessible cardinals, higher forms and higher narrations of infinity within mathematics, scaling to outer versal or boundless, or in terms of quantum mechanism, etc., and quantum physics, by the ideas of superstition, or like whatever the fuck. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to just scale my character on that level, right? I want to scale my character onto a new form of a framework. I don't just want to put it onto like just mathematics in this case. The same thing with CSAP. In CSAP, basically, it's just all about. I mean, kind of this. It's basically like this VSBW, but higher in this case. VSBW's First Battle Wiki is probably the most famous wiki in probably browsing history, but mainly CSAP Universal is defined as being above all concepts of space and time and dimensionality, existing as aspecial and atemporal, and what you would say being an abstract concept as Platonic realism is defined within the Universal tier. High Universal is being onto not multiple, I think it says claims 2 layers between the scope of universal, so I think emanations of abstractions, I'm pretty sure, and extraversal, I think it's just being on an infinite layer of what you would say metaphysical layers. That's what you would say. Yeah, it's just on a metaphysical property, but mainly it's still limited to these types of things. If you just want to scale with one wiki, you need to use these certain things if you want your character to scale to a certain tier, right? It's the same thing with, I mean, to be honest, these ones they're kind of different, but like we don't want to determine like the full power of this certain character. And plus, my other reason for this is because most wikis are entirely contradictory, really. For example, what you would say high universal, it doesn't have any emphasis for things to be what you would say paraconsistent and true emanations, and also what you would say metaphysical possibilities. It doesn't have any emphasis of that. It just proposes the claim and presupposes that there is in fact and like emphasis of metaphysics and metaphysical idealism, materialism, and dualism in this sense. And it basically goes by this. As some people misinterpret high universal CSAP, they usually do not understand the main definition of it, so it goes contradictory with what they try to say and argue. Because let me just be focused real quick. If y'all know this argument from Focus, he used it against Buga on high universal CSAP. He basically said in high universal CSAP, since there's layers, and when you have a layer stacking onto something, but being universal in this sense is being an abstract concept, right? And layers cannot be put upon an abstract concept because like abstractions by definition are completely super substantial and also unconditioned, so nothing can be stacked upon it or above it, right? And it goes by other things such as this wiki, character scaling wiki, which was the thing we were abiding to. This wiki, it's quite legit the same thing as PSW, which goes by the highest tiers, mainly being in a terminology of God in the sense, the main properties and attributes of what God is. Hegel's infinities, Hegel's absolutists, being a supreme being, entirely just true essence. Yeah, that's basically it. It also goes onto the defiance of something being like entirely what you would say non-conceivable, but also saying it's metaphysically conceivable. Like it doesn't make sense, because when you refer to a supreme being, it goes abiding to being the greatest conceivable being, having all necessary attributes, right? But a fictional character cannot necessarily have all necessary attributes, because if they did, then they would necessarily be, God, right? So they would be essenced by it, right? But you cannot make an ideal notion of a supreme or eternal being at all, because to make an ideal notion, in a sense, since anything that is supreme or falling onto the idea of absolutus or absolutum, it cannot be comprehended through conditional ontology or anything like that. In Apeiron, it literally says this, and I quote it: an eternal and self-sufficient state, a generative unity that is greater than and precedes all extensions of being, including ontological perfection itself. By the way, just so you know, being above ontological perfection is again contradictory, because it states that ontological perfection falls into one attribute of God, as by definition, right? And it says here, if one thing as ontological perfection is perfect itself, it doesn't fall under any properties, it's merely formless, because the main idea of God is a supreme being that is ultimate and formless, being formless, having no properties, or what you would say. Sometimes you can say and argue to like be having no compositions or anything like that, but we're just gonna go abiding no properties. So if you have no properties, then you're technically considered perfect if you're still existential, but having necessary qualities of greatness. Because again, by inference rules and propositional arguments, if God is defined as the greatest conceivable being, then this would mean necessary would be an attribute of greatness. Therefore, God possesses all necessary attributes, right? Which would mean technically that He is perfect in itself, and so with ontological perfection, because anything He has created, you could give the argument that logic in itself is God, like logic is one thing with God, but you could also bring up the argument that logic or like God is the main composition of logic, as what you would say. And also, by the way, I forgot to say this, but logic has a negative ontological status, not a positive ontological status. In this case, if you have a negative ontological status, it basically means something cannot be prescribed through positive properties. In this case, so if you cannot be described through positive properties, this means you're necessarily apophatic, as it defines in the old character scaling wiki. Because by the way, I've already mentioned this. Character scaling wiki is made by Axlip, who dick sucks toxic, who made PSW. So as I said again, it's contradictory. Because one thing I already put into question is by the main laws of logic, the law of identity, right? So within the law of identity, it states whatever exists is identical to itself in all possible worlds. Am I correct? Yeah. So when you make an ideal notion, again, you've proven characteristics and properties and conditional properties of that thing's existence. But the thing is, if one thing is the greatest conceivable being, then it will also be defined as a being that cannot be conceived, because it's greatness, right? It's a supreme being. I've said supreme like 14,000 times this video. But as I said again, it's regarded onto also the idea of ultimate realities, and basically just anything involving divine ideas and divine theories, anything that is related to the terminology of God in this sense, which by the way is entirely contradictory. Sure, you can say like a character can be metaphysical. Sure, you can say a character can be paraconsistent. You can say like a character can be even like, you can even argue a character can be metaphysically necessary, because you can still make an idea of something like that, right? But for things like ontologically perfect, no, it's not. It's not, because again, by what you would say, the idea of things that are absolute in this case, which are perfect, has an essence or ineffable essence, right? And falls under divine simplicity. So something that is having a main identity with characteristics and properties cannot be actuality, as it's already potentiality. Right? So really here, true infinity necessarily cannot fall under anything of these characters, nor can these characters be pure beings in the sense, as they still are composed of natural ideas within the mind, right? Because again, if you talk about the greatest conceivable being, you cannot make an idea of a fictional character that scales to the greatest conceivable being, because in this case, you cannot make an idea of something apophatic or ineffable in this case. So yeah, this is just the entire problem with tiering systems as it is. Most of them are entirely contradictory. Most of them are just entirely either mid in this case, and just weak as fuck, and just with a bunch of fucking retards. But as you know, this was just discussing a new wiki I found out, and yeah, it's ass. That's all I have to say about this wiki. It fucking sucks. So I'll see you later, niggas. Peace out.